Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Steve Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations and we're gonna just play with some cast-offs in the shop. So first of all, I have a spindle. You know what, anytime that I find old beds that have spindles or railings, I just snap them up, take them apart so that I have them available in a stash in the back for various crafts. Often I'll cut them up so that I use them in smaller segments. This time we're going to use it in its entirety. And what I am going to do is I'm going to start off by painting it black. So I am actually going to spray paint it black just to make my life easier. This one just happens to be bare. Just paint it black. It doesn't matter. I just want it sort of sealed because ultimately I'm going to paint it in beadboard by DIY. I'm doing it layered in those colors because I want to distress back to the black, not to the brown. Okay? DIY does not self-seal, so it is easy to distress back. I can do some wet distressing. That's the plan behind that. So sometimes just think in terms of, you know, yeah, I want it painted white, but I want to distress it back. If I don't want to distress back to this color, then I first have to paint it whatever color I want to distress back to. Make sense? Okay. I also need to paint up 3 tins. And I'm going to be layering paint on these, so I am starting with an all-in-one paint. This is Seaside by Fusion. Nice, lovely blue. But because I'm going to be layering other paint on top, I want to have something that self-seals so that we're not going to ultimately go back down to the tin. We're going to go back to the blue. So first things first, I'm spray painting. While it's drying, I'll paint these, and then I'll go back and paint this white. That's the whole painting schmozzle at this point. Stay tuned. My cans are dry now, so I want to do a little bit of light sanding on them. I've got 320 grit sandpaper, and I am just going to lightly go over them. One, to kind of smooth out some of the edges, and then also to create just a little bit of distressing here and there. Now, one thing to keep in mind, see how I've got all that white paint on the inside? It looks kind of icky. I mean, fine, we're going to put things in here, but you know, just in case. Because this is an all-in-one paint, it's sealed. So I can take a wet cloth and I can rub around the rim here and I can remove that white paint. So, right, they look nice and tidy. And I can also use it to distress. And I just want a light distressing, right? So that I get a little bit of that blue showing through. It just looks a little more rustic. Now, once my tins are dry, so I just did some wet distressing on them, so they need to dry out. I am going to seal them with a top coat. So I need to put them off the side and do that. And then I am going to, I just put the last coat on our bar because I was having to do one end, then the other end, then the other end, right? To get 2 coats on, it took 4 times. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a little bit of wet distressing on it to add some detail, let it dry, and then I'll seal it up as well. And then we will be ready for the next step. I'm bringing you in overhead on this one because this is a little tricky. You've got all of these tiny little ribs, and we're going to attach some floral transfers. Now, these come out of the newly released Lost Garden transfer. It's one of the back pages. Oh, come on. Just didn't want to cut there. Obviously, there's a spot on my scissors that is not in great shape. So I'm just going to need 3 of them. Cut around these. 1. Now, as you can see, I'll end up with 2 that have the same pattern and 1 that is the opposite direction. of those major florals in there. So it just means that when I go to attach this, I'm going to want my pots on opposite sides. So to do this, it means pick a spot, and I'm going to want to start from the bottom and work my way up slowly so that I'm going up and around all of those ridges. And it really is, I'm just using the corner of my tool in this case, and I'm going to go slowly. Now I've sealed these, and we know that the transfers like that sealed surface, so it's transferring on really well. But in this instance, I have to go ridge by ridge in order to be able to get that nice, smooth, continuous pattern. And I'm gonna have to do that all the way around before I lift any part of this off. Just because it would be too easy for me to miss a section and have it just kind of floating in space. So I can tell that this middle section is all lightened up, so it's all adhered now. So I just have to move on, and I am taking that tool and I'm going up along each of those ridges nice and slowly, and I'm making sure that I'm still holding that other side down because we haven't transferred it yet. When I think that I'm ready, I'm going to start from one side, lifting it cautiously, so that if I have missed a section, that I can fix it before my transfer comes off. But there we go. So cute. 2 more to go. Yay! The other thing that I want to do is I want to put 2 holes on the sides of my cans. And so I have kind of roughly looked at where each of the patterns goes to, and I've drawn my little circle, and I am going to drill my hole. Now, if you don't have a drill, you could just take a nail and use a hammer to punch a hole down through. That works just as well too. What we are going to do is we are going to take our jute, but here's the thing. Mine is all too thick. It's like 4 strands and only 2 go through. So I'm unwinding it so I can have 2. Okay. Now, when I have my jute, I'm going to take it in half, and I'm going to loop it and take both my other strands through that loop and center it on the center of my dowel. And then I'm going to take each side and put it through those holes that I punched, that I drilled on each side. So just kind of keep twisting the jute so that it's all smaller and not so frayed, and just kind of keep twisting into the hole. And you can take a pencil or something and just start pushing it through until you have all of those threads on the other side and can pull it through. So you can either tie off a knot on the inside if you want, or just tie off your knot up above, and then ultimately above your tin can, and then ultimately I will cut the dangle part away. But this gives me a little bit more flexibility to try and make sure that I get both sides at the same height. And then you have them available to be able to put any potted plants in there. You could do other decor items as display in there. You could have it in a craft room, put a number of these. I mean, I'm doing 3 on this, but you could fit 5 or 6, and you could store different paintbrushes, pens, and markers and that kind of thing on them. And this is our finished little project. Now you could hang this with anything. I hung it with jute. You could certainly, you know, I have a long enough bar up top that you could hang it with 5 of them. You could dangle a couple lower. You could fit in as many as is possible for you, depending upon what your need is. I mean, this, I've just put some faux flowers in, but you could certainly have it on an office wall or a craft room, and you could have all kinds of your craft pens and markers and pencils and paintbrushes and those kinds of things. You could put it outside, drill a little hole in the bottom of one of the cans so that you have some drainage and you're off and running. If you want to plant in them directly, you could just pop a little pot in. These are little pots already, right? That just kind of fit in there. But it's got lots of possibilities. And if you don't have a spindle, you can just use a dowel rod. You could use part of a broken chair back. You could get a really cool piece of driftwood. Anything goes. Tin cans, they don't have to go in the landfill. You can do some cool stuff with them. But this is just using scrap. And I think that that's a great use of scrap. Anybody can use this, even in a workshop. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know if, you know, this is something that you're kind of going, I could put something like that together. I think it'd be cool in a kid's room too for a lot of their stuff. So definitely lots of uses for it. Let me know what you think. Certainly looking forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.